Hello, and welcome to
Papi Approved Movies.
My name is Papi.
And I'm Natalie.
In our podcast, we will review and critique my favorite PG-13 movies.
Movies that I wasn't allowed to watch until I turned 13.
Every other week, Natalie and I will watch a new PG-13 movie.
And I'll see if Papi's movies live up to the hype.
Which, of course, they will.
Today we're going to be watching Reality Bites.
Before we begin, there will be spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie and don't want it to be spoiled,
press pause and come back when you're finished. Now, Papi, tell me the deets on this movie.
All right. How you doing, Nat?
I'm okay.
You just okay?
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna.
It's cold.
It's the third time you've said you're cold. That's all you are. It's cold. It's incredible.
I'm cold.
Reality Bites came out in 1994 with a runtime of 1 hour and 39 minutes. It's not streaming anywhere. We had to rent it on Amazon.
Amazon's gonna make us go broke. Please find us a sponsor to keep the movie screen on.
Keep the movie screen on. It was written by Helen Childress and directed by Ben Stiller. Main stars are Winona Ryder, Ethan Hawke, and Ben Stiller. Fun facts, there's a ton of smoking in this movie. This was before smoking became taboo. This movie was known to make smoking look cool for the new generation. What do you think?
I wonder if they were sponsored by like a cigarette company.
I don't know. I think people just smoked a lot back then. So to like accurately portray
that time.
Yeah, kids in their early 20s and Generation X, they would be smoking. So I don't know. So what'd you think of the movie, Nat?
I thought it was interesting. Some of the parts were confusing. I was very confused throughout this movie.
Confused? Yeah,
there was a lot going on. I didn't know what was happening half the time. And it also did induce a little bit of sleepiness. But I think I think I was just really tired when we watched this. I love Ethan Hawke in Dead Poet Society. I think he's the most handsome one there. But in this movie, he's looking a little greasy, I have to say. His hair is a little too long.
A little too long.
So he looks kind of greasy.
So you didn't think he was handsome in this movie?
He was less handsome, but obviously he's still like a model. He's like still got a handsome face. It's just he looks like a grease ball.
There's this show called Reservation Dogs, and it just ended. It's a really, really good show. And he's in it. Like he happens to be one of the characters' father. And he shows up. And he still looks good. He's just a handsome guy. He has a look to him, you know? Even though he's much older now. All right, what do you give it?
I give it a 3.5 stars.
3.5 stars? Man, we're really not going into the 4-star territory anymore, huh?
No.
Maybe the next movie you're going to love so much and give it 5 stars. I don't know. Looks like we're running out of PG-13 movies that you are appreciating. I'm going to have to look online to find you some more PG-13 movies that I like that you might like.
Or email us at Papi Approved Movies with your suggestions.
Yeah, I don't know. And think of Nat, so it has to be really boring and dumb. And
excuse
then,
me,
like
we're talking about a sleep-inducing movie here.
I didn't fall asleep. I don't, and I'm older, so
exactly.
If anyone's falling asleep, it would have been me.
You're old. It's why you like these movies. When we get into the recap.
All right. The movie begins with Lelena, which I can't pronounce or type, so I had a hard time saying her name. It's not Leilani, which is the name I thought it was. It's Lelena. And sometimes
don't they call him Lainey?
Some people call her Lainey.
Can we just call her Lainey?
All right. Well, I spent a lot of time writing Lelena, but okay, that's fine.
That's kind of on you. You got to solve your problems.
One person calls her Lainey. Everybody else calls her Lelena. The movie begins with Lainey giving her college valedictorian speech. Afterwards, she and her 3 best friends, Vicky, Sammy, and Troy, hang out smoking and drinking. Lainey wants to be a journalist and is filming everyone to make a documentary. Everyone is super cynical, especially Troy, who dropped out of college and didn't graduate. I don't know. Seems a little pretentious, right? Like, does she think like her friends are so important that they're going to make a documentary that's going to be world famous?
Well, I think that it's more like this is the average person. Like, they're not amazing. Like, they're not world shattering. And I think that's the point.
Probably, but she is.
It's like the normal.
She's the valedictorian of her college, which I don't know if colleges do valedictorians. Well, as you can see, I was not my college or high school valedictorian, so I wouldn't know. But she is the top student of her college graduating.
Yeah, but I don't think she's really
exceptional.
No, I think she thinks she's exceptional, but I don't think she thinks her friends are exceptional. She holds them to a way lower standard. She definitely is like, no, I don't want to stoop down to your level. Like throughout the movie, she's kind of like that.
There is a scene where she says that. And then, but she thinks Troy is a genius.
I don't know. But anyways, I think she thinks she's exceptional, but she thinks that her friends are just like whatever. And therefore like, oh, it would make a good documentary because it highlights like the normal 20-year-old. It's not highlighting these extraordinary people other than me, of course. Like that's what she's thinking.
And she does end up on camera sometimes, but I don't think she's comfortable on camera.
Yeah, because she's the one filming. It's not about her.
No, there's some parts where she's talking too. I don't know anybody's major other than Troy, and he was philosophy or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So you really don't know what Vicky, is she an engineer? Is Sammy an engineer? We don't know anything. Like we don't know what their degrees were in. So
I mean, I assume that the main girl's degree is journalism.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's an assumption. We don't know because we didn't find out, but I think that's a fair assumption. Everybody else, we don't know.
That's true.
Life moves forward. Vicky works at the Gap. Troy works at a newsstand. And Lainey is an intern on a TV show called Good Morning Grant. Her boss is an angry old man who hates her. So this was like the story of Gen X. So this movie is the Gen X movie. The blueprint of what happened to everybody in Gen X. And it cracks me up to think all these millennials now and all these Gen Zers are coming out of high school and coming out of college. And they're like, we have it harder than anybody in the whole world. Life hates us and it sucks. But then Gen X thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even back then, I think every generation thinks they have it the worst. And maybe it's getting worse and worse, you know. Gen Z maybe does have it worse. And then Gen Alpha is going to get a degree and can only find one job because AI will take over and bots will do all the work. I don't know.
I know. But I also think that this is kind of a tangent, but everyone says like, oh, mental health is getting worse. But I also think that it wasn't recognized.
Back then.
Yeah. So like maybe it looks like it's getting worse, but also no one went in for a therapy appointment, or at least less, unless people went in to get all these tests done or talk to therapy. Like it's not as normalized back then, so therefore there was less of it in quotation marks.
Right. And there is a couple of instances of depression in this movie. You might be right in that case. But it's funny how Gen Z looks back at my generation, I'm a Generation X, and go, you guys had it easy. Everything was given to you. We're the ones that are, you know what I mean? Millennials are like, you guys, gosh, you ruined the world for us. And this movie's
okay,
kind of
like everyone likes to make fun of millennials.
I mean, I guess, but I think everybody makes fun of Gen X too. I don't know. It's kind of funny. But this movie is supposed to be a documentary of Gen X in a way. Kind of like what she's making is what the movie is.
This is another reason why I was confused. It's all too meta.
It is a little bit. Lainey and Vicky are driving down the road when a yuppie named Michael swerves into them in his convertible. Lainey goes to his office to talk about the accident.
What's a yuppie?
A yuppie is a young urban professional. So it's like a rich person drives in a BMW or a convertible. They're like VPs. They work in business. They work as little professionals. And they're young, and so they're like the generation that came up. So yuppies started like in the 80s and 90s, and everybody hated yuppies. So in this movie, Michael is like the enemy, right?
Yeah.
He's the evil. Although,
he's the guy that got it figured out.
He's the guy who got it figured out. He's a vice president of something. And he's super nice the whole movie. I mean, we're going to get into Troy and Lainey's relationship later. But he's like the one guy who I thought was actually sweet to her.
Yeah.
Even though they had different ideas. Anyways, he's the VP of programming for In Your Face TV, an MTV knockoff. He threatens to sue, but drops the whole thing and asks her out for coffee instead.
Also, it's low-key her fault.
Why?
Because she threw a cigarette out of her car and it landed in his car. Something went on fire in his car because of the cigarette.
Oh,
and then
I thought he threw the cigarette.
No, he wasn't smoking. She just threw a cigarette.
Does he smoke throughout the movie?
I don't think he does.
Right. Separate him from everybody else. He's not smoking. He's not cool.
But anyways, I still think it's her fault because she threw a cigarette.
Well, if that's the case, it's her fault.
And then it like something caught on fire. Or he just like noticed the flame or like something was like smoking or whatever. He was like, oh my gosh. And then he like crashed because he was not focused because there was something burning in his car. I
didn't know that she was the one that caused the accident. I thought he was smoking, dropped a cigarette onto, it was like a CD, like the cover of a CD, and it started to go on fire. And then to try to put it out, he lost control of his car and hit her. But if she's the one who threw the cigarettes,
it was either Lainey or Vicky. She was in the car with Vicky, so it was one of the two.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And this is what I mean by confusing, because there's so many cuts in this one section where I'm like, okay, either they threw it out of the car just because like they were finished smoking the cigarette and they just threw it out of the car, or they were making fun of the guy beforehand, so they purposely threw it into his car, and like that could be, like that could be a thing because they were making fun of him, like, oh, look at this guy.
Yeah, look at this yuppie.
He's like cool or whatever. I don't know. They were just making fun of him, and then like that's another possibility. And I'm like, bro, slow down. Just show me like a shot of all of them because I don't know what's going on because there's like 15 cuts in this one section.
Yeah, the cuts also are representative of when they show the film later of Reality Bites, the TV show that they're using her documentary footage for. It's like the same thing. Cuts. So it's kind of like the thing of the time. Anyways, back at home, Troy, who lost his job, is crashing at Vicky and Lainey's house. Lainey protests, saying he's a slacker, but he moves in anyway. Lainey films Troy some more for her documentary, and he talks about his band. She thinks that he's wasting his potential, and they have a food fight. The crew chill out at home smoking and drinking, and Vicky tells everyone she's been promoted to the manager of the Gap. Michael calls Lainey, and Troy is clearly jealous. Then they all go to the gas station for snacks. They use Lainey's gas card her father gave her for a graduation gift and buy a bunch of treats. Yummy treats. You can buy a million things at the gas station, right?
Honestly, nowadays that would be a pretty good gift considering how expensive gas is. Like, imagine a whole year of free gas. Like, I'd go on a road trip, man.
You're like, why did you get gas in Oklahoma? Because I was there.
Or like even snacks. Like, they have everything at the gas station. They're just in smaller bags. Instead of going and getting your snacks at Food Max, just go to the gas station and get yourself free snacks.
Tons of candy, tons of treats. Like, and they have hot dogs, pizza, chicken wings.
This is why I mean she thinks she's too cool. Because she was all like, oh, a gas card. Yay. Like, no, a gas card. Yippee, bro.
Oh, and a BMW. She got a BMW as well.
I know. Yeah. And she's upset about it.
Yeah. Well, because the BMW stands for the patriarchy and yuppies, and she's trying not to be that. You got a free car.
Why'd you even ask for a car?
Well, I think we just gave it to her. But still, like, thank you. I'll take whatever you have. Yeah. It's free.
This is what I mean by ungrateful, spoiled, and she thinks she's cooler than she actually is.
Yeah.
She's not all of that.
And a bag of chips. At the house, Troy is partying it up when Michael comes to pick Lainey up. They have an awkward moment. The day goes really well. They talk, drink big gulps, and start making out. Troy comes home later and sees him making out in the car as he walks into the house, sadly.
You forgot you're inappropriate.
Well, I was just making out. Oh. The inappropriate will come later when there's more than making out. Making out's not inappropriate. It's when you do more that's inappropriate. After the date, Lainey walks in and Troy's waiting for her. He puts her down for making out with Michael and then talks bad about him too.
I don't even know why he's putting her down for this. She went on a date. That's what you do, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what his problem is. Go take your anger out with the rest of your band. Like, go away. You little couch dweller.
She asks him why he's acting like a jealous boyfriend. Then he stands up and professes his love to her. Then starts laughing and says, don't flatter yourself.
Yeah, he thought he ate with that. I'm sorry, but he didn't.
Well, she was like, you do love me. They're like, it hit her hard. And toxic. I don't know. He's the hero of the story. Dude's garbage.
I know.
I don't know.
No, but I watched that scene and I was like, that's embarrassing for both of them. Like, that's just, first of all, that's embarrassing that he was like, I love you. Don't flatter yourself. Like, okay, first of all, that's embarrassing that you just said that. And then second of all, it's embarrassing for her because she's all like, oh my God. And then like, he's like, psych. And then she's like, oh, okay, never
She
mind.
got her
then.
hopes high, right?
Yeah. And
he
after
does
she
love
was
her.
on a date with another guy, I'm like, okay, that's also embarrassing for you. And it was just like secondhand embarrassment for this scene.
Everybody should be embarrassed.
Yeah, just stop, pause, think about your actions, and then like continue.
Lainey shows her documentary footage to Grant. On the tape, Troy and Vicky talk about marriage and divorce. Troy's parents divorced when he was 5, and his dad was absent after that. He also happens to be dying of cancer. Vicky talks about her parents and how they act more like brother and sister, that there's no real love there. Then we see a scene where Vicky goes to the free clinic for an HIV test. Real quick, how terrible is that? Would you want to have that footage shared with the world?
I know, what a not supportive friend for what's her name to go film that.
I doubt she didn't have permission for that.
I know, but still.
Because she acted in front of the camera, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of creepy, right?
Yeah.
And then the results also are on tape.
I know, what if it wasn't good for her?
Yeah. I guess that's the reality of the situation, but I don't know. A little too personal.
I know. And you could tell she was acting different inside the clinic because she was joking around, but then she looked really, really like sad and worried.
Scared. Yeah.
And so like, I'm sure she gave permission, but you can tell she's being uncomfortable. And that's the point where Lainey should have been like, okay, I'm going to shut off the camera.
Yeah.
Instead of just kept going and then continuing on with this like storyline by showing the results and all that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Grant hates the footage and calls it trash. He hates Lainey too and wants her fired. She gets back at Grant by ruining his show. She writes inappropriate comments on his question cards that he reads without even looking. He says that he likes young girls, and the audience goes crazy. Lainey goes home and tells everyone she was fired. Vicky offers her a job at the Gap, and she rejects it, like hard. And Vicky's offended. So that is that one where she thinks she's better than that. Like, I'm not going to work at the Gap.
And also, like, it's not like this is permanent. Like, she knows that she's going to get a job. She's got bills to pay. She should just work at the Gap. And your friend's offering you a job. You get more time with your best friend in the world. It's literally just her pride. And, like, after celebrating all that time with Vicky and then saying, like, no, I would not work there, that's just extremely rude.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Because she didn't make a big deal. You're like, yeah, you did it. She was proud of her, right?
Uh-huh.
But then she's like, well, your job is garbage.
Yeah. Like, it's not good enough for me. It's good enough for you. Like, oh, it's a celebration when it's for you. But when it's for me, like, that's not okay.
Yeah. Later, Lainey and Troy go for a walking tour of all the places he's been fired from. They have a moment, and Troy kisses her. And she moves away. And he gets very upset. Do you think that was inappropriate of him?
For what?
For the kiss. They were having a good time hanging out, drinking coffee, having cigarettes. He's talking about this is the best day of his life. This is what he loves.
Yeah, you should stop right there.
I don't know. Did you think so?
Okay, it's like he's making it about him, almost.
No, he kissed her because he likes her.
Exactly, but like you're helping her out, you're making her feel better, but then like, no, you get what you want. Like you ruin the moment for her.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he just missed the signs. And we come to realize he didn't miss the signs because she does love him.
Exactly.
And wants to be with him. And she just chose not to at that moment. Maybe because she was going out with Michael, she didn't want to cheat on him, or because she was unsure. But I mean, I don't know. The whole thing seemed kind of weird from her point of view. Like, why would she stop him?
I mean, because she's dating Michael.
Yeah, but like 3 scenes later, they end up making out again.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, then we see a montage of Lainey looking for a job and gets rejected by everyone. Even Hot Dog World? What is the name of the place?
I don't know. It had something to do with hot dogs.
A hot dog stand said no. And it was Joe Dirt. The actor who played Joe Dirt, he's the one who was the manager. And he only been working there like 6 months.
Yeah.
He's like, nope, you're not cut out for this. Then she asks her parents for help, and they also say no. The rejections mount on when she goes to talk to Troy, and he's still upset about the kiss. And he leaves her right there at the diner. You blame him for that?
No.
Yeah, because she rejected him, right?
Yeah.
But then they're supposed to still be friends. But they should probably talk about the kiss first.
Yeah, instead of her just being like, what's good, homie? And he's like, girl, we didn't even talk about what just happened.
Yeah. Lainey goes home and is depressed. She watches their in-your-face TV, and it sucks. She lays on the couch, smoking and drinking, and gets hooked on calling psychic hotlines. Days pass and Vicky comes in and complains about their $400 phone bill. They argue about her slackerness. So obviously this is an old movie. People had shared phones back then. There were landlines, no cell phones. So we would share a phone bill and you would split it. You would look at all the calls and you're like, all right, you owe $80, you owe $12, you owe $60.
Yeah.
And that's how it was back in the day. You guys will never have to have that problem ever again. You just have your own cell phone bill, which you probably will never pay. I'll be paying your cell phone bill when you're like retired and 80 years old. And then you never have to worry about that. But there was fights.
But anyways, I don't know why Lainey's like all upsetty spaghetti that Vicky's mad at her for spending $400 on this phone bill. And I think that this is wrong of her because Vicky isn't even like, you didn't pay your phone bill. Like, she's not even doing that. She's like, hey, you've been spending a lot of money on the phone bill. I really need it. Like, she's trying to be like so nice and communicate and be like, hey, is everything okay? Like, you should probably like get up and move around because like you're just not doing well considering that this is all like to a psychic phone call bill too, because she's like, oh, we know where the number is from.
I would say they also had rooms. I don't know if she and Vicky shared a room, but the room that she was laying in for days on end was the living room.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, maybe there's no TV in her room. That's why she wants to be there. Lainey uses her dad's gas card to make money to pay for the phone bill. She makes enough and comes back to the land of the living. Then Troy comes home with a girl and Lainey starts talking bad about both of them. He asks her why she's so jealous, and it almost gets physical. Vicky steps in, and she and Lainey go for a walk.
How does it almost get physical?
He stands in her way. Once again, Troy's cool, man. He smokes, he drinks, he has cool hair, he has all the funny sayings. He has all the cool sayings. But the guy's a punk. Like, he's trash.
Yeah.
Once again, toxic. First off, she starts being rude to both of them. And the girl didn't do anything to her, right? She just sat there quietly, the girl that he comes in with. And then he gets in her face. They get face to face. And she's like, oh, what? You're going to hit me? Like, we're going to fight? And then she says something mean again. And then as she tries to leave, he steps in front of her. What are you going to do? You're going to hit her? Like, what? Are you a tough guy now? I don't know, man. I can't stand this Troy guy. Mm-hmm. I look back and I probably thought, I want to be Troy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like 17-year-old Papi was like looking at this movie and saying, Troy is cool. I want to have my hair like him. I want to be cool. And I want to demean women and treat them terribly.
He's like the conductor of the toxic gossip train. Like,
never heard that, but I guess that makes sense, right? Yeah, no, he's terrible. Was he going to punch her? Because I think Lainey was like, all right, let's go. I'm going to punch you back, you know, because they're both toxic.
I don't know. Maybe they're meant for each other because they're so toxic.
Lainey and Vicky end up at a diner. Vicky tells Lainey she's lonely and breaks up with guys as a defense mechanism. She also talks about how terrified she is about having AIDS. Then Lainey gets a phone call from Michael. He's in New York, and he pitched her documentary without asking her. He says the executives love it and want to make it into a TV show. She's super excited and thankful. So there's one thing he did kind of stupid, right?
He didn't ask her.
Yeah, he didn't ask for her permission to show it to people.
And it's like, oh,
he stole
fine.
It.
Yeah, it's fine because she got what she wanted. But what if she didn't? And that's just really wrong.
He would have never said anything of it.
Yeah.
But she was super thankful and happy. Like, it was like a joyous moment where you're like, oh, you took my property and you sold it without asking.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess Michael isn't 100% great, but
he did it with like good in his heart.
Yeah, he wanted to do something for her. Yeah. We have more documentary footage, and it shows Vicky getting a negative HIV result, and they celebrate. Then on the footage, they put on a play where Sammy comes out to his parents. Then we see the aftermath of him telling his parents for real. He's so sad. At the end, he says all he wants is to be let back into the house. There you go. There's a very personal moment right there. I think Sammy existed only for this moment in the whole movie.
I know. I was kind of wondering why he was there for most of the movie, to be frank. I was like, what is he doing here? Like, he barely says anything. He doesn't have any big scenes. He's always just like walking around.
Yeah, he's just there hanging out.
Yeah.
Has like one comment here and there and there.
Yeah.
So back in 1994, I would say having gay characters was rare. You would have a TV show and you would have no gay characters at all. Most shows. And I think at this point they started to add more. And this is an edgy, rad Gen X movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's the only reason he's in there for.
They definitely like brush over this pretty quickly.
It's over after that.
Yeah.
We don't know anything that happens to him.
Like, we don't know what happens next. And like, I think it could have been like the HIV scene where it was like, we got like an update later in the sequence of the...
In a good or a bad way, right?
Yeah, in the sequence of the documentary. Like, it's a documentary of different pieces of stories. And we only got like one section, and like it really didn't make sense. Like, they just kind of shoved it in there for movie's sake.
We see him later with a guy. Like at the bar, I think. And one of the later scenes, he's with a guy. But it doesn't tell us what happens with this family, right?
Exactly. And who knows if this is a friend guy. Unless they were like kissing, but
I don't think
I don't remember.
But he came with a guy, so I don't know if... I mean, I think you can assume that was like his date or his boyfriend or something. Michael comes over to pick up Lainey for the unveiling of her show. He and Troy get into it. Lainey comes out wearing a dress and Troy calls it ugly. She wants to change, but Michael says she's beautiful and she shouldn't change for Troy's sake. Troy and Michael argue again, and then they leave.
This is also stupid because Troy's all like, let her think for herself. First of all, you're the one who made the comment in the first place. Michael was just being a hype man, as you do.
Yeah.
And you're all like, it's ugly. Like, you're really going to go out looking like that. And then later you're like, why don't we let her have her own opinion? Let her do as she pleases. I'm like, that wasn't the case earlier.
Well, I think
when you called her a doily. Like,
I think he meant, why don't you let her have my opinion? You know what I mean? Like, don't have her disagree with me kind of thing. Yeah, also toxic. Who calls some woman ugly, right? At the studio, Lainey is very nervous. Michael unveils a promo for her show, Reality Bites. It's crazy with wild cuts and loud music. It even has a Pizza Hut commercial at the end. It's nothing like what she envisioned, and she walks out. Michael tries to stop her, but she goes away anyways.
My question is, did they just let that air?
What do you mean?
Like, she just walks out. It's not like she's like, cut the cameras, we're not posting this. No, like, she just walks out. So does this just like end up happening?
In the end credit scenes, we see that the show does happen. They show like the actual show, but they have different names. So I think Michael ends up stealing the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it how he says, we'll take out the Pizza Hut commercial and then we'll make that a good show. Like, everything else is wild and crazy in Pizza Hut commercial. This movie had so much advertising. You had big gulps. You had the cigarette names. You had the cars that they drove. The whole movie was a gigantic commercial for like popular culture items.
Yeah.
You know, so Snickers. He gets fired for stealing a Snickers bar. She works at the Gap. The Gap, which is probably the most popular store in the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just like, the movie itself, Reality Bites, the one that we're reviewing right now, is exactly like the TV show. It's loud, tons of clips like you were mentioning.
I know.
And tons of in-screen advertising. I mean, they drink big gulps.
But people still complain about that. It's not like that's an issue that's gone away.
I know, but
like everyone jokes about like how the Mean Girls musical is a giant commercial for elf makeup, and then everyone else thinks it. Yeah, like and they actually did commercials with elf, but also within the movie, it's like a giant commercial too, and everyone's complaining about it too because Regina George would never use a drugstore makeup, and that's what everyone's like. She would never use that. She'd be using Dior. Like, that's not Regina George.
Yeah, yeah, I guess. But like, this movie is saying we're anti-establishment. These characters are anti-establishment. We're selling this movie to these cool anti-established grunge rock stars. But here, buy some big gulps and go to shop at the Gap. You know what I mean?
All they needed was for Hot Dog Land to be Wiener Schnitzel.
I know. They should have named it Wiener Schnitzel. Lainey gets home and Troy's there and he comforts her. Then he professes his love and they make out and are intimate. Inappropriate! The next morning she wakes up and catches him running out on her. He says he has band practice and she calls him out on it. He leaves anyways. She's crushed. Later, Lainey goes to the bar that Troy is playing music at. Then Michael walks in. He tells her that he has 2 tickets to New York and he wants her to pitch her show her way to the executives. Then Troy calls Lainey over so they can have a private talk. He says that he loves her, but she's still very upset. for him walking out on her that morning, and she walks away. Troy goes back on stage and plays an angry, aggressive song and dedicates it to her. She gets angry and leaves. Michael and Troy follow her, but she's gone. Michael and Troy argue in the street, and then Michael throws the plane tickets on the ground and leaves. When Michael's out. Like, he's out of the picture, you know what I mean?
You could have just taken the plane ticket and gone on your own little trip. Like,
Sure.
Come on, man. That's money.
For reals, right? Time passes and we see that Troy has left for Chicago to be with his dying father. Lainey misses him. When she finds out where he is, she gets ready to go to see him. As she leaves, Troy comes over in a suit. His dad has died, and it's hit him really hard. He tells her that he regrets leaving that morning and that he loves her. She goes to him, and they kiss. Troy and Lainey move in together, and during the credit scene, we see Reality Bites on TV, with 2 actors playing Troy and Lainey. The end. They live together. They move in together. The dude has no job. She has no job. Why are they affording an apartment?
I know. What happened there?
It's so weird. I watched this movie, and I think it explains a lot of the time that I grew up. And I just think, ugh. If Troy is our role model, and Lainey's our role model on both sides, we're just going to be smoking, drinking idiots.
Yeah.
That are just toxic and mean to each other. But the movie was good. I liked it. All right. Could this movie still be made today?
I don't know, because it is like not even about the stuff that would be canceled, but why would they make a movie today based on Gen X and their youth? Like, that wouldn't really make sense for current day.
Yeah. And there's so many references that don't make sense anymore. The whole MTV generation. I mean, there is MTV still, but it'd be like TikTok instead. I would love for this movie to be remade with Gen Zers or millennials. Millennials are too old now.
That's why I was saying, like, oh, I should make a documentary.
Yeah. I would love to see this, right? It would be so entertaining to see what you think is cool. Because right now, what, Gen Zs are 20s? Are they in their 20s?
Gen Z, they're in like college.
Yeah, so it's about the same age.
Yeah.
Like if this movie came out in a year or two, then those Gen Zers are getting out of college right now.
And then you could also see, because Gen Z is a pretty large generation.
Right.
Because I'm still in Gen Z.
Some would say Gen Alpha, but yeah.
No, I'm the year before Gen Alpha. And like you could see that range would be pretty cool to see, like the transition from high schooler, like maybe a junior or senior in high school going into like a college like level of the generation. I think that would be kind of cool to see too.
No, but I would love to see this exact movie remade with everything the same, but the new generation and how people act differently.
Yeah.
Right. I would be so interesting. I think it would be so good. You'd like, I get out of college. I can't afford to live anywhere. I'm not going to buy a house. That's not the American dream. There's no more yuppies, right? They're all
that's what you want to do.
They're all like tech, like people work at Yahoo and Google.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know. I don't know. It would be very interesting to see a Gen Z version and how much I would probably hate it and how much you would probably love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because nowadays I feel like there's so many teen movies or TV shows. Like all the current ones, they're all like romance, like Never Have I Ever, Summer I Turned Pretty, like all those.
Right.
Those aren't realistic because those are made by people, probably millennials and Gen X. They don't know what's going on. They have an idea because maybe they have like, they're surrounded by younger people, obviously, because that's the world. Right. But they don't know exactly what is cool, how we talk. Like you see a movie sometimes and they like use a slang word and you're like, oh, haha. But like, it's cringy. It needs to be a documentary made by someone of that generation else it's not correct.
So maybe a millennial movie would come out now. So the director of this movie is Michael, the character who plays Michael. Yeah. He's the director of the movie. Ben Stiller, that's his real name. But at this point, Gen X had been around, so it made sense that some of the executives or writers were Gen X. So we couldn't have a Gen Z movie for another 10 years.
I know. But that's another reason why I think YouTube is such a giant movement, because there's teenagers vlogging their life, and it's like mini documentaries in 15-minute videos that are almost kind of a similar idea. Especially there's a lot of editors, they have editors, and so it is very movie-like in a sense. It's just in a shorter form because people don't have attention spans anymore.
Well, that's a great question. So maybe you could never make this movie for Gen Z because they're never going to go to the theater to watch this movie because instead they'd just rather watch on YouTube or TikTok.
No, but I think they would watch it. It would just be like a really fast-paced movie. But I think that we kind of have a little bit of that documentary sense because a lot of people are chronically online and therefore they're making things like this movie without even knowing.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I don't know. Does it pass the Bechdel test?
Yeah.
Yes, it does pass the Bechdel test. The Bechdel test is a test to check for female representation in movies. There are 3 criteria. Criteria number 1, are there 2 or more named females?
Yeah, there's Lainey and there's Vicky and the mom has a name, probably.
Yeah.
That's basically it, though.
Criteria number 2, do they talk to each other?
Yeah.
Great answer. Criteria number 3, do they talk to each other about anything other than a man?
Yeah, I can only think of one instance right now, which we talked about earlier, was the phone bill. Like, she was like,
Sure.
You spent $400, and that didn't really have anything to do with the man. Like,
Yeah.
It was just about money.
So it does pass the Bechdel test. All right, congratulations, Reality Bites, for passing the Bechdel test. Last week we probably made the shortest podcast of all time. This might be our longest podcast, just so you know.
It was a confusing movie.
It wasn't confusing, it was epic. And this is like a time capsule looking into what your dad was going through when he was in high school and college.
I hope not.
Maybe I was that jerk. I don't know. Maybe it was like an acceptable thing, and I'm happy that people have learned to be treated better and get away from toxic relationships, although they still happen, right?
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Thank you for tuning in to Papi Approved Movies.
If you like this episode, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast app, or like our podcast on YouTube. And also make sure to subscribe.
We put out an episode every Monday.
If you want to see extra podcast content, follow our TikTok at PapiApprovedMovies@gmail.com.
If you want to suggest a movie for us to watch and critique,
email us at PapiApprovedMovies@gmail.com.
that's PapiApprovedMovies@gmail.com. No spaces, no caps.
We'll try our best to get to your suggestion. And remember, it has to be PG-13.
Next week, Sophia will be back and we'll be watching The Godfather.
And I'll be back in 2 weeks to watch Transformers.
I'm Papi.
And I'm Natalie.
See you next time.
Bye.